Dr. Joseph Mercola is our guest. We've had more than 20 contests. One contest was for $100,000 and was hugely successful. This one, because our budget's a little tighter, is $7,500, $5,000 first place, $1,000 second place, $500 third place. I always bite off more than I can chew. Every time we've had a contest, I announce the date that I'm going to be announcing the winner. I always push it back a week. One time we had something like 600 good entries, and I had the pleasure of getting to watch them all. And then we wanted to promote them, tweet them, put them on Facebook, put them on Infowars.com. We got over 100 good ones this time, only with a 2-week notice. Other contests have gone for 2-3 months before. That's when we get 600, 700 entries. 500, 600 of them being really good. This is the Obola, tying Obama's non-response to Ebola to the tyranny of socialism and collectivism. Hashtag tyranny is the disease. Help expose it. Today was the day I was supposed to announce the winners. We've still got more contest entries to post this weekend and next week. I still have not seen all the entries. I've seen about 60 or 70 of them. I've got to go watch 30 or 40 more I haven't looked at. I've got to go back and look at the top 10 again. So I'm going to spend a couple hours this weekend, a couple hours next week, trying to judge the winner. I get feedback from the crew that's been watching them. But all of you are winners because you're exposing the tyranny. You're out there being political activists. That's what it's all about. Look, one movie, Super Size Me, helped trigger a revolution that was already under the surface to revolutionize and really turn the tide against the poison, the additives, the plasticizers, the GMOs, the chemicals in the food. And we still aren't winning, but we're coming from behind and are set to start winning. People expose aspartame as bad. They just changed the name and put it in almost every gum and candy out there, including sugared. I tell people, you know, your sugar gum has aspartame. No, it doesn't. It's sugar gum. I go, friends, family, you name it. Go, wow, you're right. That stuff makes you go blind. Pro-toothpaste hashtag hijacked by anti-fluoride activists. We launched this. InfoWars put out a call to hijack hashtag Sweet Halloween to inform parents about the dangers of fluoridated toothpaste. This was put out by Crest Corporation, or I guess Procter & Gamble, or whoever owns Crest. I think it's Procter & Gamble. I'm going from memory. And we're just exposing the Harvard studies, the hundreds of other, it's actually thousands, but I say hundreds because it sounds unbelievable. Nothing's been studied like fluoride and lead and mercury and things like that. I mean, just been studied for hundreds of years. They know what fluoride does. And so we've hijacked it. It's been taken over. One of the contest entries on Obama got picked up by newspapers around the country, and one of them that picked it up was Egan News. Man in Obama mask and hazmat suit hangs Obola posters across Chicago. And here it is in the major newspaper, drudgereport.com, picked up the video, and now it's gone viral. See, that's how it works, ladies and gentlemen. So everybody's a winner. I don't know who's going to be the 3 winners. We'll let you know very soon. And please don't forget, if you need cutting-edge vitamins, minerals, supplements, there's a lot of great places out there. Mercola.com, great products, and just sensible, real reviews. We try to be at that very same high standard and just go with the facts. InfoWarsLife.com, the Survival Shield X2 Nascent Iodine, the Super Mel Vitality, the Oxy Powder from Global Healing Center that just, well, you've heard the rave reviews. We can't keep it on the shelves, and it's about to sell out because it's word of mouth. I only want to bring out supplement products that blow people away. Now, I want to get into fluoride briefly with Dr. Mercola and then some phone calls, but I want to give him the floor to talk about whatever's front and center. But you were getting into diabetes going epidemic, up in some statistics in Hispanics up 3,000%. They're saying that they're set to have 60, 70% of Hispanics by 2025. They're talking about half the public perhaps having type 2 diabetes. Suddenly type 1 that's supposedly genetic is popping up in people later in life. You're a big expert on this, Dr. Mercola. You were getting into it. They never ask, why is diabetes up? They always say, what's the cure? Well, wouldn't the cure be not doing what's causing it to go epidemic? So A, what's making it go epidemic, or pandemic, I think's the word. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then B, what are the secrets to it? I mean, how can people stop from getting it, and what's been shown to be promising?
Well, Alex, it's not just diabetes. It's obesity. It's cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's. These are all have at their central core insulin resistance. So the most effective way I've ever found clinically to address it is the timing of your food. The quality and the type of food you eat is important too, but the timing is massively important. Let's start with breakfast. We all know that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, right? Wrong. It's a myth. Who created it? The cereal companies. More important than any single meal is how many hours you eat in any single day. Because not only do we eat the wrong food, but for many of us, the only time we don't eat is when we sleep. And if you think about it, our ancestors, they never had access to a grocery store 24/7. Many of our ancestors were lucky if they ate 3 times a week. Most of us eat 3 times a day and snacks in between. So our genes and metabolism are optimized for more sporadic, intermittent meals. Basically feast or famine.
I saw some of those studies interrupt you. That's why they think Mesoamericans, who are really land bridge Asians that came over, are getting hit so hard because they really survived on almost nothing and were super tough and hardy. But you give somebody with those genetics a ton of food, I mean, boy, they're going to be deader than a hammer really quick.
Yeah, so that is the key. See, we're basically, most of us are feasting 24/7, and we just don't go into the fast mode. And the fast mode doesn't have to be for long periods of time, but if we do it regularly, there's a number of ways to accomplish this. And the most effective way that I found is, and you only need to do this as long as the insulin resistance persists. And how do you know? You either take a fasting blood insulin level, your weight normalizes, you don't have diabetes, or you're not taking a statin drug. So if those things disappear, you don't have to do this. But until those things disappear, do the 3-8-3. Stop eating at least 3 hours before you go to bed, sleep 8 hours, and start eating at least 3 hours later than you do now. And then when that happens, magic occurs. You'll be less hungry, you lose your cravings.
That's now happened.
It's just the most amazing thing. It's just absolutely
incredible. I did a juice cleanse about 4 months ago, and that and pure iodine and eating healthier, all of a sudden, I'm not even doing what I was doing before, and the weight is just coming off exponentially.
Yeah, it is just massively important. So it's just the timing. If you restrict your eating window to 6 to 8 hours a day until the insulin resistance disappears, is amazing. You know, you mentioned our viewers that we actually have 10 million unique visitors to our site a month, and one of our visitors had mentioned that she had tried this for about a month, and she used a 6-hour eating window, and the first day her cravings disappear. What she couldn't believe it, and what was most impressive is that they only had that similar result previously using amphetamines. That's how profoundly effective the appetite suppressant effect is. And you're not buying anything. You're just using the timing of your eating to replicate, to basically jumpstart your ability to start burning fat.
Well, that's the old Hollywood secret that I've been told by so many people there, models, you name it, famous actors. They've all told me, Alex, the key, because back then I was fat, I mean, not super fat, but overweight. They'd say, man, you'll lose that weight. Don't ever eat after the sun goes down. And that's just well known by models, you name it. Never eat after the sun goes down.
Yeah. That's a good strategy. So, and if you do that and you get your insulin resistance under control, then you don't have to worry about infections because you'll improve your insulin resistance, but you also improve your gut microbiome. And interestingly, you know, you talked about the artificial sweeteners like aspartame, which I think we're making major progress on, but there's scientists that figured out, they published a study last month in Nature. We figured out how one of the major mechanisms how aspartame actually causes you to gain weight.
Well, I remember you being on my show like 15 years ago, and a medical doctor as well, Dr. Blaylock, saying, we have evidence that aspartame, stuff in Diet Coke, makes you fat. Now suddenly CBS News headline, diet sodas make you fat. Go ahead, tell us about that.
Well, the mechanism, the reason how it makes you fat, we didn't know until like a few months ago, is that it alters your microbiome, your gut microbiome for the worse. You get the wrong bacteria growing there, which causes you to gain weight. So it's all about improving your gut flora and decreasing the insulin resistance. You get those 1-2 punches and there's almost no disease that you can't turn around. It's so profoundly effective. Now, clearly you need a health coach to fine tune some of the more complex diseases, but you know, if you got to get the basics down. You know, I'm a big fan of the Bulls when they had Michael Jordan, and he was a great superstar, but you know, one of the reasons they were so good is because of their coach, who basically grill them on the basics. And if you don't do the foundations, any fancy supplement in the world is not going to help you. You got to get the foundations right. Staying away from sugar, of artificial sweeteners, chlorinated water, getting enough sleep. It's mundane, but it really does work. It's very powerful. And getting the insulin resistance resolved by something like intermittent fasting.
So they basically found the way to shut off the fat gene.
Well, it's not the fat gene. What happens is when we eat all these excess carbohydrates and we're eating regularly and we're not fasting, then that builds up enzymes that basically suppress our body's ability to produce something like lipase, which helps burn our fat. So we don't.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying it's in the genetics that we're not designed to do this. So you turn off the fat gene, even though it's not really a fat gene, by getting in line with your genes.
Right. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this then: what would you call this then? This huge scientific discovery?
Well, the general term is called intermittent fasting in the literature. I call it effortless eating because it truly is effortless, Alex. I've never seen anything so magical. Once you get that insulin resistance resolved, the hunger cravings disappear. The only time you're hungry is when you need to eat. You don't have these cravings for sugar or junk food. They disappear.
Because when you're eating too much, you get unbalanced, and now you just keep eating.
Well, no, because your body requires, because you can't burn fat, you have to burn sugar. So you only have about 12 hours of sugar. So as you start to get low on your sugar, you have to replete that you replete your glycogen stores.
So scientists discover the secret of fat loss and health.
Yeah, well, it's not one specific scientist, but there's an emerging consensus among a large number of professionals that this is the most effective way to achieve that.
Well, sure, that's in the literature. It's just amazing that everything the big corporations do is the opposite of this, and it shows they've known this all along. Going back to Edward Bernays and the rest of it, I mean, they've been engineering us to be unhealthy. Why do you think that is?
Well, I'm familiar with Bernays, and I would agree with your position and what he's doing. But I don't know that they really understand this. I mean, just like most of these healthcare professionals, they're buying in the hook, line, sinker themselves for their not only personally but for their own family.
They just want to sell no matter what, and even if it kills their own kids.
Well, it's because they believe it. They truly believe it. I think that they aren't. It's not a conspiracy that they've got these guys aligned with them. They've convinced them so cleverly and with such sophisticated tools and techniques like Bernays and they have some of the most sophisticated marketing tools available ever known to humankind. So they're using them and they can afford them. So they use them liberally to position to advance their positions essentially.
Well, I want to get into the latest health news with you. It's all on Mercola.com, but let's take a few calls because they have been holding patiently. Sure. Frogo, I don't know if that's a hobbit or what, but they're calling from England. Welcome to the airwaves. You're on the air with Dr. Mercola. I know you had a comment about the election as well. Go ahead.
Hi, Alex. No, last time I checked, I'm not a hobbit. Right then. Here in England, council elections are regarded as a weather vane for general elections. The psephology experts then spend hours, much of it in television studios, analysing what the 20% turnout did and making projections for the real thing. And I think the principle is perfectly transferable to everywhere that has this election game. So this election that's coming up can be taken as a weather vane of the presidential election in like 2 years. My expectation is a general victory for the Republic creeps, and I figure that the New World Order has already decided that the next president should be a Republicanoid because the Democratic brand is worn out, which was inevitable. Long ago, there was George Walker Bush, president, and let's see, he won the election by, I think it was 5 votes to 4, which caused a lot of consternation all over the planet, not just locally. Then over the next 8 years, he proceeded to be the piece of scum that anyone who had looked
Sure, and
into
then the
his
savior
background
Obama comes in, and then a new savior. But now the Tea Party is being targeted by the Republicans and Democrats. I want to get Dr. Mercola's take on that, but I want yours, showing, just like UKIP or something, they are genuinely, you sound like Nigel Farage, by the way, caller. So you do. So he's been on the show many times. Anyways,
I don't drink as much.
Yeah. Well, go ahead and finish your point. It's just that, can we see a revolution through both parties to reform each party, or what's going to happen? I want to get your brief take on that, caller from England, Frogo, and then I want to get our doctor friend's take on it.
Frogo, but who's counting? Well, basically, my position is kick the bums out. Vote for Tea Party candidates wherever possible, and where it's not possible, just don't take part in the game, because it is a game.
Or run yourself. Let me get Dr. Mercola's take on that.
Or run yourself, yes.
Sure. Dr. Mercola, again, I don't lionize the Republicans or the Democrats, but the Democrats have really been on Mach speed right now, using the fact that they could pacify the left to power grab. What do you make of these elections? And they're saying it could be a political realignment. They're saying it could be the biggest landslide ever, is what polls are showing, against Democrats.
Yeah, I really don't focus on that too much because there's so many other areas. The only concentration I do is how it affects the health components, which would be, we've got GMO labeling bills in Oregon and Colorado this year, and there's a strong probability they will be effective. They did pass without in Virginia earlier this year. So we have one state that's already passed the labeling bill, and of course they're being sued by Monsanto and others. So, I think the direct ballot initiative is a really powerful tool that we're utilizing out west. You can't do it really.
Yeah, bring us up to speed on that. Talk about the state of that, because the fact that Monsanto and others would spend tens of millions of dollars per state in some cases so that we don't know that their BT corn is in it. I mean, how outrageous is that a car company wouldn't want their label on the car? I mean, that tells you right there, that is such fraud in my view. That is such fraud in my view, that they would lobby so that I couldn't know their stuff is in the food.
Yeah, I was the primary donor for the California initiative 2 years ago, and then we've been heavily supporting the Washington and Oregon ones also. But the central issue is that we've lost California and Washington. There's a good possibility that we'll win in Oregon. But even though we've lost that battle, we're winning the war, because you may not be aware of it, but there's a clear demand when you go to the store for non-GMO products.
Even at Walmart and Target. Even at Walmart and Target.
It exceeds the demand for organic.
Yes.
Within literally 2 years, we changed the consciousness of the public to understand that non-GMO is more important than organic.
In fact, when I was thinking about trying to get you on a few weeks ago, that's why I wanted you on, was about Ebola, to get your take on it, but also to talk about, words cannot describe how massive your work and all the millions of activists' work and our work, everybody. This is a big win here, that I go to Target or even a Walmart now, and it's non-GMO, organic, Heinz ketchup. Everything is converting to it, even though a lot of times it isn't pure organic and there's some cheating going on. The fact is, we're winning the hearts and minds. McDonald's is imploding. That's why I've said I think we're making the sea change, and the fact that I think, I mean, didn't you guys get like $1 million bucks?
That happened because of what we did in California. Everyone was so sad that we lost. We narrowly lost just because, they've thrown in $100 million to basically buy political ads and lie. It's legal to lie in these things. They outright lie, and they're not arrested for it. So that's how they win. They just flood the media. But if it wasn't for California, you wouldn't see those changes. And that was only 2 years, Alex. So I think there's great hope. We're utilizing the direct ballot initiative, which exists within many states, I think somewhere between 30 and 40 states, and we're utilizing that and making massive victories.
And we cannot overstate how big this is and how central you were to that. How much did you end up giving to it?
What, the California initiative?
Yes.
Basically somewhere between $1 and $2 million. I think it's probably closer to 2.
And then wasn't that like most of the money to counter the 100 million?
No. Collectively they rated. No, the 100 million was what they've donated for all the campaigns together. In California, I think we raised 10 million totally for the pro-labeling campaign, and because California is a massive state, so of course there's more funding required. The opposition raised 50 million. So yeah, they outspent us 5-1.
That's right. But the good news is, and I'll say it, I saw the polls. I think there was fraud in both states. But I know you don't want to go there, but let's just say this. You lost the battle, but you're winning the war. We lost the battle, we're winning the war. Because it raised the consciousness and the awareness that I'm not allowed to know there's GMO. Well, you know what, then? I'm going to buy from the companies that openly want to tell me. Because if you're not telling me that you don't have it, then I know you've got it.
Yeah, that's basically the key. You know, so we make with these small victories. You know, it is a war, so there's going to be battles, and you know, we got another battle coming up, and it's great if we win them because it accelerates the process. We don't have to delay it as long, but it's still raising consciousness of the public because the media picks up and we get all. I mean, we put in $10 million, we probably got $500 million worth of media exposure.
More than that, and again, you spearheaded that, Dr. Mercola. I mean, I do want to give you the credit.
It was a good investment. It was a tremendous return on investment. Much better than the $3 trillion we're spending on healthcare. I can tell you that.
That's right. But it's got to feel good. You're another example of what one man can do, then reaching out to others, building your organization, doing all these interviews, writing all your articles, doing, you know, it's so amazing to know that we can win if we just believe we can and start taking action. But it's not going to happen overnight.
No, and the action has to be concerted and very strategic. I mean, we're playing against very clever and sophisticated forces. I mean, they know what they're doing. So you just can't go in there willy-nilly. And, you know, you need concerted efforts. You need to align with like-minded individuals, but you have to have a strategy at the higher levels. You just can't. And that's where a lot of mistakes are made because people have the good intent, but they don't have a powerful strategy. Fortunately, you know, we've identified some really effective strategists to help us in the campaign.
I agree. We're going to let you go here in a few minutes. We're going to go into overdrive and talk to Nick in California listening on KOMY 1340, Jennifer, Jordy, and a few others. But Dr. Mercola, in the few minutes we've got left here, I do see not just an economic collapse coming, but a total collapse in confidence in the political system. Gallup shows a 7% approval rating for Congress. They can have cult of personalities like Obama, but when they don't deliver, they go from icon to scoundrel pretty much overnight. And I see that compacting, accelerating. I don't think the establishment's going to be able to continue on the way they are. What do you see in the future?
Well, I see an inevitable collapse. I mean, to me, there's no other option, really. But there's no way. To me, it's impossible to predict that. I mean, it might not be for 50 years. It might be 2 generations later. It might be 100 years, or it could be next year. I have no idea. But I just know that the trajectory on is not healthy, and there's just no. They're not going to give up their power. They just aren't until there's a collapse. There's just no way. But we can accelerate that process, and it's going to be good. You know, it's just like an alcoholic who goes through. Has to hit the gutter before he recovers, and that's what's going to be required here. We have to suffer some severe pain before everyone's willing to make the necessary changes to help the whole process recover.
Well, it's like 2 more studies out this week in prestigious journals that it's true. BT GMO corn is making pigs have bleeding intestines, and there's been a double-fold plus increase of kids being brought into emergency rooms with irritable bowel and leaky gut. And they've directly linked it to the BT. Well, no kidding. It kills the bugs that eat it. What do you think it's going to do when it hits us? And what does Bill Gates and Monsanto and all these people think they're going to do once more and more of this comes out? And not just them, all the other GMO companies and people. I just don't know how they think they're going to get away with this.
Well, you know, I would not underestimate their resources. I mean, they've got incredible wealth and sophisticated strategies to counter things, so they're going to do just fine, and they're not, you know, so we just have to look at ourselves, basically take control of our own health, not rely on these drugs and medicines, surgeries, just to do simple things: avoid sugar, use intermittent fasting, get plenty of sunshine, safe tanning. You know, these are strategies that we can each and every one of us. So we
change ourselves and pull ourselves out of their system one step at a time.
Yes, and lead by example. Show your friends and relatives that you don't have to accept the hook, line, sinker what the media is telling them, and that there are healthy options that are really inexpensive.
Well, I tell you, thank God for you, Dr. Joseph Mercola, Mercola.com. Have a great weekend, a safe All Hallows Eve, and we appreciate you.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, Alex. Appreciate you and all you're doing, too.
Thank you. Amazing individual right there. And I tell you, he doesn't brag. He has done so much with his team and his supporters. And we know our listeners are his supporters and viewers. He does a lot of media as well. Check it out, Mercola.com. Check us out, Infowars.com. Drudge Report, linked to our article. I never got to it. It's on the right-hand side of Drudge. It's red linked on Infowars.com. CDC to purchase body bags in anticipation of more Ebola deaths. And they just sent 250,000 body bags to Dallas. Federal agency issues services sought notice for PPE supplies. We'll be back in just a minute in Overdrive, Infowars.com/show. See you this Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. Central on GCN. In the past decade, we have witnessed unparalleled scientific discoveries in the area of health. But no one has put together a formula that focuses directly on brain health, nerve growth factors, and optimizing your cellular energy at the same time. DNA Force is one of the most expensive formulas to produce. Some of the ingredients in DNA Force are $12,000 a kilogram. We are using the coveted, patented, only American source of PQQ, CoQ10, and more. You want the best that's out there at the lowest price anywhere? Well, we're bringing you a total win-win. The ultimate value, cutting-edge, trailblazing game changer that also supports the InfoWar. We have produced a limited run of DNA Force, and it will take up to 12 weeks to produce more once we sell out. Secure your DNA Force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139. DNA Force from InfoWars Life.